we have the opportunity to make a habit of empathy.
I'm not convinced that the judge will be able to resist having her personal biases and preferences dictate her judicial methods when she gets to the Supreme Court. I find it very troubling that President Obama is changing the standard by which our country's federal judges are selected. Instead of searching for qualified jurists who can be trusted to put aside their personal feelings in order to arrive at a result required by the law, President Obama has said he is looking for a judge who has, quote unquote, empathy, someone who will embrace his or her personal biases instead of rejecting them. This concept represents a very radical departure from the normal criteria for selecting federal judges and Supreme Court justices. In his statement opposing the confirmation of Chief Justice John Roberts, then Senator Obama compared the process of deciding tough cases in the Supreme Court, can you believe it, comparing it to a marathon. He said, quote, "That last mile can only be determined on the basis of one's deepest values, one's core concerns, one's broader perspective on how the world works, and the depth and breadth of one's empathy. Legal process alone will not lead you to a rule of decision. In those difficult cases, the critical ingredient is supplied by what is in the judge's heart," end of quote, of then Senator Obama. Until now, judges have always been expected to apply law even-handedly and to reach the result that the law requires. When speaking about the law, lawyers and judges often talk about what the law is or what the law requires instead of what the law should be. We expect judges not to confuse the two. We expect judges not to bend the law in order to reach a result that they would want personally instead of what the law requires. We expect judges not to decide cases in favor of a particular litigant because he or she may be more worthy of compassion. We don't ask what the judge's heart says about a particular case of a legal issue. We ask what the law says. A mandate of judicial empathy turns that traditional legal concept on its head in favor of a lawless standard. If empathy for a litigant's situation becomes a standard for deciding cases, then there is no limit to the effect on American jurisprudence. If a judge's decision in the hard cases is supplied by the content of his or her heart, then that decision cannot be grounded upon objective legal principles. If the last mile that then Senator Obama referred to is determined by a judge's deepest feelings instead of legal precedent, then the outcome will differ based on which judge hears the case. Predictably and consistently, hallmarks of the American legal system will be sacrificed on the altar of judicial persuasion and compassion. When a judge improperly relies on his or her personal feelings instead of relying solely on the law, it leads to creation of bad precedent. If a judge's decision is affected by his or her empathy or sympathy, whatever you want to say, for an affected party or group, then the law of unintended consequences dictates that others will be affected in the future beyond the present case, and they will be judged by a standard that should not be applied to them because what a previous judge did about personal sympathy instead of what the law says. Justice is blind. Empathy is not. Empathetic judges take off the blindfolds and look at the parties instead of merely weighing the evidence in light of what the law is. Empathetic judges put their thumbs on the scales of justice, altering the balance that is delicately crafted by the law. Empathetic judges exceed their role as part of the judicial branch and improperly take extraneous, non-legal factors into consideration. That is why President Obama's judicial standard of empathy is problematic and why we should be cautious in deferring to his choices for the judicial branch. Judge Sotomayor's speeches and writings reveal a judicial philosophy that bestows a pivotal role to personal preferences and beliefs in her judicial method. Although Judge Sotomayor attempted to spin her statements away at her confirmation hearing, I had difficulty reconciling what she said at the hearings with statements she has repeated so often throughout the years. That's because the statements made at the hearing and those speeches and law review articles outside the hearing cannot be reconciled. Since 1994, the judge has given a number of speeches where she responded to a remark by Justice O'Connor that a judge's gender should be irrelevant to judicial decision-making process. Judge Sotomayor said that she, quote, hoped that a wise Latina woman would more often than not reach a better conclusion than a white male who hasn't lived that life, end of quote. So, this statement suggests, very contrary to the Constitution, that race and gender influence judicial decisions, and that some judges can reach a quote-unquote better conclusion solely on the basis of belonging to a particular demographic.